Pot never boils.
Oh, no.
Did you see
I
my
know,
bike
you're
box?
right. Can't help it.
You got it.
Yeah, that was really good. I meant to respond to that.
Totally
I saw that. I was like,
complete.
man, that's
OCD,
Yeah,
compulsive.
Andrea have been like
That's
beating
me.
at me like, come on.
There it is,
do
1
this.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, boys and girls, it's
Needed
1
for a
o'clock.
long time.
We'll call this meeting to order and start as always with the pledge of allegiance. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call. Clint Nelson, present. Bill Stewart.
Here.
Peter Hensley.
Present.
Good, Peter, glad you're back. Carol Wilson.
Present.
Patty Townsend Smith.
Here.
And Chad Williams. All right, Chad. I don't think we need to seat an alternate. We seem to have a full boat here. So Chad, please stay with us. We appreciate your help. Item 5, additions, deletions, and amendments to the agenda. Does staff have anything?
None.
None? Okay. Committee members have anything?
No, sir.
We're good? All right. Then item 6 is approval of the agenda as presented. We need a motion and a second in order to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, okay. Moved by Pete. Seconded by Bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Item 7, public comment. We got anything? Really? Our farm boys, ag boys are not here? Nothing?
No one online.
Have you heard anything?
None.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on to item number 8, approval of minutes. All of you have had an opportunity to review the minutes that Therese put together for us from our last meeting on July the 8th. Are there any comments or suggested changes on those minutes? If not, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the minutes. I move we adopt the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Item number 9A, general manager's comments. Jake, that's you.
Just a couple updates. I did want to update you on the emergency repair, the pipeline. I think everybody's probably heard. Okay, we've got a pipeline broken under Highway 76 over by via Montellano. We've been working with a consultant with some expertise in trenchless construction to come up with a kind of a permanent solution there. We are still working on that. We've had to do quite a bit of field work. We've done, had surveyors out there, and then just the last couple of days, went out and got some geotech borings. Everything, it's an emergency repair, but we're in Caltrans right away. We're in county property. I mean, there's a lot going on around Highway 76, and so everything's taken a little time to be able to kind of jump through those hoops. But I think we've kind of gathered all the information we need now. That's kind of being analyzed by the engineering group, and of course the team that's assembled on this side, myself and Chad and Malik and Robert, and are all engaged in the process. The one thing that we have done, we were getting a little concerned. This is the suction side of the Dentro de Lomas pump station. So one of our newer pump stations on the that pumps up to the south end here, which this is a lot of our ag demand is over here on the south end. A lot of demand on this side. And this is the main feed to that pump station. So we were having to run it at a very reduced rate, basically 10%, 15% of its actual capacity, just because we only had so much, again, suction side capacity. You're talking about 8-inch lines and things feeding it. So you can just only get so much flow through there. Operations, and I think you saw this at E&O, but operations actually constructed a high line. So we utilized a wildlife crossing that's, I don't know, 500 feet or so down the way, and basically constructed an above grade pipeline through that wildland crossing back around, and tied in both ends. It was it, honestly a massive project for our crews, putting this above grade pipeline in, fully restrained. I mean, you're talking about 270, 280 pounds pressure there at that location. But they got it all in service, back T-test, flushed, tied it in, and that thing's operating now. So Dentrodome is now operating at full capacity, which came at good timing just because it got hot. Got a little bit hot, and we've seen demands pick up, and so it gives us a little bit of breathing room, I would say, on emergency repair. We're still kind of pedal to the metal. You know, we need to get the permanent solution as quickly as we can. And I think it'll move fast from here. It's kind of taken us, like I said, it's taken some time to kind of gather all that data and make sure, you know, there's a lot of risk with trenchless construction. We don't know what you're going to run into, those kind of things. And so we're really trying to minimize that kind of risk, right? Thinking we're going to go into a $1 million project and it turns into something double or triple that because you run into some issue. Yeah, it's better to do the work ahead of time and you know, move it where it needs to be, select the right method to make sure we actually minimize the risks to the district. And so, but I think we're actually getting pretty close. Probably in the next month or so, we'll have you know, a selected method, and we're going to start working with you know, contractors on a basically an RFQ. It'll be kind of an RFQ process with, you know, some more design build type plans. But more to come on that. That's, you know, again, in the next probably 4 weeks, I think we'll see some significant action. And I think the goal is to, you know, hopefully get this thing constructed within the next few months and, you know, have a permanent solution there. The board had approved some authority for, you know, design contracts and things like that, but obviously we'll have to come back when we get some harder construction cost and for some additional authorization. So
Question, Jay.
sure.
Jake, this is heretical Flint once again. Given that we put the High Line in and we're operating relatively normally, why is this continuing to be an emergency? Why are we going flat out to do this? And why aren't we taking a more, what would you say? Why aren't we just letting this play out over a longer period of time?
Well, the above grade High Line is not a long-term solution.
Right.
We're talking about above grade PVC pipeline. You don't want to leave it out there for a year. It is an emergency. I mean, we need to have this pipeline in place. And how do I say this?
Why do we need to have it in place if we're operating normally right now?
Well, because that's a temporary solution.
Yes.
Right.
It's a temporary solution. Yeah, I mean, having an above grade pipeline running around through a wildlife crossing, and it's not a permanent solution. And I think we need to continue to treat it as an emergency. That being said, it gives us a little bit of breathing room. So stoking some contractor competition and things like that becomes a little more doable over the next few months rather than just having to take what we get. So the High Line does afford us some of those liberties, but I don't think we want to move in a direction that's not an emergency declaration. It comes along with a lot of other
benefits,
yes,
such as
Funding.
Permitting.
I was going to say environmental stuff is probably easier to deal with under emergency.
And we're doing everything
Yeah.
we're supposed to do under that, but yes.
Okay, well, I just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Because
No, but it does. Yeah.
sometimes we get ourselves all worked up, and not this department.
Yeah.
In general, we can get ourselves all worked up around something and find out it's not really as big
Yeah.
of a crisis as we think it is. And we end up spending extra time and extra money when we could have just stretched things out, taken our time and done it business as usual. You say this is likely to be $1 million caper?
I think at least, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will it have any effect on the rest of our capital program for this year? Is anything going to get deferred because of this?
We're not planning on deferring anything. We have looked at, we had some funds in for some improvements we wanted to do around here, the district headquarters stuff. So those things might get delayed, but nothing infrastructure related. We're not planning on. If you remember, both last year and this year's CIP were funded under the $10 million U.S. bank loan. So actually,
Right.
we need to spend that.
Right.
And there still is, that's actually, those are restricted reserves is basically what those sit in as. So that's funding actually all of our existing capital projects. Yeah, it shouldn't impact it. I mean, it will come out of our CIP reserve. And so we'll have to keep a close eye on that,
Mhm.
but anyways, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just,
Yeah.
checking the boxes. I just want to get it
Right.
on the record and kind of get where we were and
Yeah.
why we are where we are, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And on that note,
Okay.
the other update I want, and I hope I don't steal too much of Constantine's thunder when he goes over the financials, but I dug in, pretty deep. Obviously, we finished out the fiscal year, so end of June was the end of our fiscal year, and we needed a good financial year, and we got it. Yeah, we got it.
12.9.
Yeah, there was a lot. Obviously, the additional water sales were up by about 30%, 29%. And finishing detachment early and realizing some of those lower wholesale water costs from Eastern starting in November. We had budgeted for January. Obviously, with the larger water sales, there's actually a wider gap there. I mean, obviously, we still purchase more water, so we spent a little bit more on the purchase side, but that gap was actually wider than we had anticipated. But those are things we can't really control, right? Those just come and whether it rains or not, things we can't control. The things we could control, that's really what I wanted to kind of focus on. And knowing we had to have a good year, our group really did a great job of controlling our internal costs, labor, operations, those kind of things. And just to kind of throw some numbers at you, and these aren't final, we're still, the audit has to come and, all those different things, but we were almost $1 million under budget on labor, supplies, and those. So between all of the departments, valves, operations, all of those things. A lot of that, I talked throughout the year about these guys making improvements on our chemical injection at Morrow that had a huge impact on this year's budget. It was, our chemical purchases were well under budget. But even just, department by department, I think everybody kind of rallied knowing, hey, we got to, hold it tight, and everybody did. We were up almost $150,000 in investment income beyond budget. So we've done a great job of kind of managing the cash flow and making sure those things are placed into strong investment accounts and earning every dollar we can. So all those little things kind of mesh into that big number that you saw. Obviously, the lower water costs, and that's the big potato. But the stuff that we can control was really good. And I'll just kind of take you back to last November. Our unrestricted reserves were at 7.3 million, which is uncomfortably low for a district our size. We probably have $400 million in assets. So that's a very small number. And we're at, as we sit in June, 17.3. So we worked hard to get back to, again, I'd like to see that number higher. We're going to keep running into unexpected capital improvements, overruns on construction projects. All those things will continue to happen. It's just the way things are. And, but I feel a little more comfortable at that level than I did last November. And so anyways, great job by this team. Good job by the board. Even the board was under budget. And yeah, so that gives us, I mean, again, I'm not sighing, this, it still keeps me up at night, kind of how we can continue to improve. But when things like this come along the line and you're talking about $1 million and things like that, these things shouldn't scare us to death, right? We should be able to handle issues like that because that's the kind of infrastructure we have. So, so anyways, a little bit of comfort in that. So that's all the updates I've got.
Any comments or questions for Jake?
Jake, I just have one question. Is Rainbow bearing the burden for this PVC pipe that burst after 14 years?
Well, we're
Or
gonna,
is this shared with
yeah.
other situations?
well, we're gonna replace it. I mean, we're moving forward with the replacement. We are having, it was a request by the board and I think it's a good request. We're gonna have some forensics done to see, cause of failure, if we can determine a cause of failure. And so, yeah, so that's actually in progress now too. We were delivering pieces of broken pipe and that I think yesterday to go along that effort. But it's hard to say. Construction defect, bad piece of pipe. It's hard to say. But we're gonna at least do a little investigation on that and see if there's anything definitive that comes of it. Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. 9B, Finance Manager comments. Constantine, that's you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jake. Pretty much covered the financial portion pretty well. And I have three things to add just as part of my comments. Our department's working on producing a budget book that needs to be submitted to GFOA if we want to get an award within 90 days after the board approved the budget, which was on May 27. So it should be uploaded by end of this month, and we are on track for that, and hoping we'll get another award just like we did last year. We are also working on the audit and staying on track. We finish our preliminary audit and the final field work will be beginning of September. So sometime on the next month finance committee, I'll give you more update on the audit, but so far it's going well. So we provided all the information that auditors need and answer all their questions, which they had a lot of questions, so we're keeping our department very busy. Third thing, and it's probably something later on we'll bring to the finance committee to review. We're looking into our new ERP system for the finance. We will be implementing a new financial software that will be better aligned for water utility and will be easier to produce monthly financial reports and will decrease the time for the staff, how long it takes right now to produce some simple reports. So more will come on that, and we'll probably, if we do an implementation in 2026, then we might do a mid-year budget adjustment. So we're still looking at the numbers and reaching out to vendors and trying to get the quotes and compare. So
does that mean that we could conceivably get a report for the prior month for these meetings? That are the second.
You mean close out the month and have the.
It's an average of about 10 days. I just wondered.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with some systems are that quick
Right.
to recover.
Right now it takes about a month to get the monthly financials.
So we're looking at 2 months.
So that's why right now we're in August and we're looking at June. So, and I'm used to usually it's around within 2 weeks after the month end. That's when it should be done. And we should get to that point. Yes. So right now we do have that lag because it's a lot of manual work going on between
this
multiple
be-
departments.
Oh, yeah.
Will this be largely due to the implementation of a new system, or will it be more largely due to implementing different human practices in your department and the other departments to help close the month out sooner?
Will be largely for implementing ERP system with some automations because right now it's a lot of Excel and manual work that's being done, whereas reports should be coming out, just push the button and then you would see budget to actuals. But right now they're being assembled. We're getting reports and they're being manually changed in Excel to match the presentation style. So that's why the presentation of budget to actuals that you see every month,
Right.
it will change going forward. You might change the style a little bit and it will be more in line with GAAP standards as well. So, and it's something that I would like to see going forward. Mhm.
You were not here, but you were, and
Hayden,
you might have been,
Hayden, maybe. Last
Hayden
month.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we replaced a whole bunch of our central systems or purchased central systems for a variety of things, asset management, timekeeping, financial management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Any thoughts on why we ended up needing to replace this system relatively soon compared to the others? Any thoughts on that? I mean, how did we end up
Yeah.
purchasing a less than beneficial system in the first place? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and the systems are working. I mean,
Yeah, they're working.
that's EAM and some others. I think what we're looking for, the billing system is, you know, is better than the one that it replaced,
Yeah.
you know, no doubt about that. We're actually working on a new time card system. We're gonna do that's just kind of a minor switch. But the financial system, it's just not very well geared for an agency our size or our type. It's a
Are we too big or too small?
we're much simpler really than you know and so we're looking for something that just better fits us. And the issue, you know, a lot of times with these systems is you get and I've seen this before, you get kind of promised that everything's gonna fit together like a glove,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't. You know, the different systems don't talk, and you're trying to make it fit. And Ahmed, believe he's like a magician. He does stuff to make this stuff work. But the issue, you know, the issue really with the
But we
finance.
shouldn't have to be doing that.
No,
Mm.
no, and it is creating a lot of manual activities and things like that. And there's just a lot of better systems out there that are just better integrated. And so that's right now we're just kind of going through the process of what's out there. This is probably a 18-month, 2-year kind of a process. So I think, yeah,
Correct.
Constantine's just kind of giving you a heads up that we're starting to look at these things. But I think there is something much better out there for the district, and so we're starting to explore that.
And also on your update, Constantine, you mentioned the budget book.
Right,
We're putting together a budget book so we can get an award. Is that right?
right. Yes.
Okay. Does that award bring us any money?
It shows that we are transparent with the public. It wins public trust. It will be on our website and showing that our book been reviewed, peer reviewed by other agencies, and that we are up to a standard. So there are no questions that the data may be inaccurate or it will be difficult
There's
to
no
understand.
financial reward for getting this award. Is that
No,
right?
no, it's
Okay.
it's really a group of financial experts that take a look and go, yeah, you guys are all square, and it's a public trust thing, and it does give, I think, the budget book, which Amanda redid last year, was fantastic. It obviously gives everybody a view into, you know, the department level budgets and all those things. So, you know, anybody from the public or committees or board can flip that thing open and pretty much know anything, wherever dollar's going
Right.
within this agency. So I think that's the big win. I
Okay.
think
Might help a bit with interest rates down the line.
it doesn't hurt when you're doing things
Mhm.
like that too, right? Presenting to credit rating agencies and things like that. So
Yes.
that could turn into,
Mhm.
you know, maybe a little something that gets you a buck, saves you a buck
Down the road.
anyway. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions for Constantine? Okay, let's move on to item 9C, committee member comments. I'll just go around the horn. Pete, you got anything?
No.
Bill?
Nope.
No,
No?
no.
Carol?
Thank you.
No? Okay, then we are on to page 2. We're on to item 10. This is Andrea, rate study update. So looking forward to this.
Yeah. I want to give a,
Interrupt with one quick question.
Yeah,
How much is this new system gonna cost us?
Oh, thank you.
So
no,
this,
no, yeah, we got to pick it.
so it might be even cheaper than the current one. Current one is expensive.
Really?
is it a monthly subscription?
It-
Annual.
It's a
No
it's a
subscription?
subscription. With implementation cost and then pay annually for the system. But I reviewed how much we pay for each separate module and put together, and we're looking at the system that can replace those modules that will be also talking to each other. And I'm trying to stay in a range that it will be actually cheaper. The system that was purchased was very expensive and usually feed large cities.
Sounds like we overbought
It-
back when we,
It was a
got what we got.
fancy system, but
okay,
Thanks.
you good, Pete?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's go on to item 10 and the rate study.
Rate study, yeah. So just want to give us a little bit of a lead in. Andrea's got a great presentation for you. Going to kind of walk you through a lot of this stuff. And we talked a little bit last month about some of the things we wanted to look at as part of the rate study. And that's one of the key, interestingly enough, some of those items. We had a couple of recent cases that were decided that are a bit troubling when it comes to, I say it makes the 218 thing, there's a lot more scrutiny on the Prop 218. And we've heard it in this room where, you're talking about just a nexus or a link between cost and, cost of service between those things. A couple of recent court cases have what's the good word for it? I mean, put it down to the molecule. We're talking about molecules. Yeah.
And I think for our new member, do you know what Prop 218 is about? It's somebody can explain it better, but to me, the one sentence answer is that it says that our rate system must be directly related and corresponding to the actual cost of service for the customer class we're talking about. Okay, so that's why we can't do a special rate for poor people the way you can with other systems. And there are a number of limitations where our hands are really tied together. And somebody else can probably explain it better, but that's
Yeah.
the short version.
So Andrea will go into a little more detail on that, but very recent stuff that just came out, and it's local too. I wanted to give a little bit of recap, just kind of where we've been. The original rate study was done and completed in 2023. It recommended basically a 9% rate increase. It was a 5-year, we did a 5-year Prop 218 notice. But 9% rate increase plus pass-through. So 9% plus what was coming from the County Water Authority at that time. That rate study was based on us remaining with the County Water Authority. There was a 9% rate increase that was done on July 1st, 2023. So after that rate study was done, and then the new fiscal year, there was a 9% rate increase. I came on board in September. We did a pass-through on January 1st of that year. It was a similar number, it was 9.5%. That was just the cost that was coming from San Diego County Water Authority. So that was in January 1st, 2024. By the time we got to July, so another 9% would have been coming. We had the settlement agreement done. We were in construction on the pump station, so we kind of had a pretty good handle on when we were going to start to see the lower water costs from Eastern. And so that really lowered what we needed to do at that point. On July 1st, 2024, we did a 4.5% rate increase, so half of the 9 that we had approved. And that's the last increase we've done. So we're talking and we talked about this a lot during the budget season, but a 18-month window, basically, we haven't touched rates, and really a large part due to the lower water cost. The board did approve a 4% increase for January 1st, 2026. So we wouldn't have another one until January 1st, 2027. So here we are looking at another, you're talking 18 months plus 30 months where you're talking 4.5% and 4%. Pretty modest rate increases. And I think what that's done, I mean, we have really stabilized rates, at least. I know some of our ag customers actually even saw a decrease in their rates when we did detach. But I think that's what we were after, and I think that's where we are. I think the rate study, really what we're after, making sure everything's still balanced, right, in line with our Prop 218 and fixed and variable costs and all those different things. Again, we wanted to look at a couple of different things. Can we, could we do any kind of special rates for these different things? Some of the feedback we've got from the public and the committees and the board. So we're looking at a couple of those different things. But really that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to kind of revisit this rate study now that, we've kind of, the dust is settled on detachment. We kind of see where all the costs are landing, and make sure we're on the right track. That's really what we want to make sure is we're on the right track. And so Andrea is the one that's going to make sure that we're there.
I'm going to try. So a few new faces. My name's Andrea Bowling. I'm with IB Consulting. Been working for the district for a number of years. Pre-Jake, back in the Tom days. I don't know if anybody remembers Midge, but she was your finance person when I first started working for you guys. So it's been a number of years. So with that, what we want to go over today is I want to just give you an overview, especially for the new faces, what goes into financial planning. Okay, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just taking a budget number and plugging it in. Then we're going to go over your current water financial plan. So again, this is just the water portion of the district. You guys have water and wastewater. This is just water. So we'll look at where you're at and where you're heading. And then I have a few scenarios in a proposed financial plan, and I'm really just trying to get some feedback from you guys and see what input you have. Those scenarios include things like changing demand and the impact that that has on your financial plan. So your revenue stability, if you will. Okay. And then from that, we're definitely going to dive into the legal environment that we're exposed to today. It's definitely a changing situation and it's not ideal. And then we'll talk a little bit about cost of service considerations and hopefully, again, get your guys' feedback. If you have any questions, please go ahead and stop me and we'll address them at that time. So what goes into financial plan? It's a lot of things. So the number one thing that we start with is your expense projections. Again, we don't just take a budget. We look and we talk to staff at a line item by line item basis, and we select escalation factors that help us project where we think costs are going to be. We want to make sure that we're accounting for any one-time expenses or anything that maybe is not going to occur next year. So we want to, again, spend a lot of time looking at the details. We also, very important for Rainbow, is we need to make sure we factor in your debt obligations. You guys have a number of them and we want to make sure that we've captured them all. Another driving factor is water demand. This one's a big one. Demand can change based off of account growth, weather patterns, things of that nature, and it's a big driver for our financial well-being. We also want to look at your revenue projections, not just rate revenues, but other operating revenues and non-operating revenues, such as property tax and cell tower leases. And the biggest by far and away of any water agency is going to be your capital spending. So hopefully everybody's well aware of that, right? Customers don't really see it. They may not understand it, but it takes a lot to keep all those assets that are underneath the ground and hidden from view operating in a way that maintains safe and reliable water. And it's very costly. And then of course, we also have to make sure that you have sufficient reserves to account for any unforeseen expenses or risks. So where are you at today? Let's go through some of our key assumptions. For now, we're assuming no account growth. So we're not relying on customers coming into the district or development to occur to meet our obligations. This is a conservative approach. And the reason we would recommend this as a starting point is because we don't want to rely on it to occur. If growth doesn't happen, which is very volatile, right? Developers come in all the time. They're gung-ho. They think they're ready to pull those permits and get building, and then they stall out. So we don't want to rely on it. Because otherwise.
Ask a question.
Yeah.
The ag guys aren't here today, but if the rates are so high that it's affecting their business, have we projected any reductions from the ag business?
That's a good question. That's part of the demand adjustments that we're showing. I didn't necessarily show accounts decreasing because as the ag decreases, presumably a lot of them will sell the properties, maybe not all of them, but a good number of them will sell the properties and then they'll be developed and it will actually drive up growth. So again, it's a kind of a balancing game.
Anyway,
right?
you're considering it.
We are considering it.
Yeah, and I think especially over the years, we've become kind of more and more conservative with our demand projections. Obviously we follow, what we're selling year by year. But even this last year, I think we tend to err on the side of, we might have some slower years. So, yeah.
The worst case scenario would be to assume the growth or assume a higher demand and then not realize it, because then now we're not meeting our revenue requirements.
Andrea?
Yeah.
I'm looking at a chart that we were given in our handout. And it's called comparative water sales year to date from prior years. And it fluctuates. It shows that our water sales are pretty wildly fluctuating. And I can understand if you have little bumps, but things appear to be here. I would have a hard time finding a line that tells me where we really are. How do you address when you're planning revenue? How do you address something that goes in acre feet, 14.9 thousand, 11.8 thousand, not 10,000 and 12.9 thousand? I mean, that's
Correct.
20% fluctuations.
It's a huge situation for you guys, and it's a concern for Rainbow specifically. Not every agency is faced with this dynamic that you guys face. I have a whole 2 slides on this, so we'll get to it. And
Okay.
I'm going to be cheeky. I'm going to point to you and say, hey, Flint, what do you guys want to do? Because I don't have a way of coming up with a good projection. All I can recommend is that we keep it on the conservative or the lower side. Again, that's just the safest bet, but it's like throwing darts at a wall.
And also having a rate stabilization fund and
Correct.
things like that really helps. If you have one bad year, that's why it's really
Yeah.
important to have that
Mhm.
fund, some money set aside, saved up for a rainy year.
Right. It helps.
Literally.
I think it helps.
Yeah. Rainy year
Maybe,
fund.
yeah.
Yes.
Keep going. Yep, keep going.
Okay.
The opposite of what you think.
And then we're going to assume very modest 1.5% on reserve interest rate. Again, we want to stay conservative. As far as cost escalations, the financial plan right now is assuming 6% for salaries and benefits. And again, that's in line with what staff expect to see occurring. It's been a little bit on the higher end, correct?
Yeah, with inflation and all those things. Yeah.
So we're just making sure that we're in line. And then for anything capital related, we are using the engineer's news record. We're using a 5-year average. Mid-year, it's 3.78%. General is anything like your office supplies or anything admin related. We're using CPI of San Diego, and currently that's at 4.77%. And then energy is a big factor that we need to talk about. Right now, we're assuming 9%. But I do want to mention that the fiscal year 2026 budget, which is what we're using as our baseline or our starting year, it already includes a 15% increase in energy. And again, this is for 2 reasons. 1, energy costs have been increasing. And then 2, you guys have those electric vehicle mandates. So you guys are going to be transitioning to having electric vehicles. So you're going to have purchases that are going to require more energy. And you're going to have the charging stations, which we have captured in our CIP plan. Okay. So hopefully the 15% is high enough. I think we feel pretty good about it again, because 15% and then year over year, it's going to be 9% thereafter. So once you get rolling, those are the escalations that we're using. Okay. And then this is a big assumption too, and we want to make sure that everybody's aware of what we're saying. We are assuming that we're going to continue to pass through purchase water costs. So what I mean by that is that means in my financial plan, I know what the costs are today, and I'm essentially holding it pretty constant. Anything above that will be passed through in January when you know those costs. Okay, so you'd have to go out and it'd be in addition to the rates that will eventually develop. Okay, so we'll know the purchase cost today, and that's going to be, there's going to be a fixed component, let's say for purchase water cost. And let's say it's $13 on your base meter size. In January, when Metropolitan and therefore Eastern increases your rates and it goes up by $1, you guys would just directly pass that through to your customers. Okay, if we don't do that, then I need to make sure that my costs are escalating in the financial plan. So we've used it in the past. That's been the process that you guys have agreed on and the board has approved. is to continue with that pass-through provision. But again, I want to make sure that you guys are okay with that, 'cause it definitely changes my assumptions that you guys would be okay with assuming a pass-through provision. And we would notice it in the Prop 218 notice. We'd have to make sure that we notice that.
The fact that you make that assumption and fold it into your financial plan would not prohibit the district if they had a couple of really good wet years. We made a ton of dough and we chose not to pass through a 5% add-on by Metropolitan via Eastern. That would not prohibit the district from doing that, right?
No, correct. You guys come back on a yearly basis and make those decisions
Okay.
yourself.
All right.
Yeah, the good news
More of a protection.
too is Metropolitan does, usually they do two years of rates. And so you actually know what those costs are going to be kind of well in advance, even for the following year when you start looking at those budgets. So you can kind of, and now what we've done is we've rolled everything to January 1st, right? We used to do a July and a January. We moved that, had the opportunity to kind of defer a rate increase. And so moving everything to January. So it all gets rolled into whatever we're going to do on January 1st. But
Makes it
yeah,
cleaner.
and we will know a couple years in advance. But if you're looking out 5, then she's saying just going to assume you pass the cost through, and then because it's out of your control, really. Yeah.
Okay. Going back to that image that I showed you at the beginning, again, water demand, Flint, thank you. Water demand impacts everything that we look at. It's going to impact our revenues that we're generating, the expenditures that we're incurring, and ultimately my cost of service analysis. So again, I think you guys already know this, so I don't think I have to go into too much detail, but weather, very, very impactful for Rainbow. You guys have a wet year and you're going to see your usage drop drastically. You know, it could be 30, 40, maybe more percent. Regulations and mandates, you know, everybody's heard conservation is a way of life. We have seen that that's brought down. This is more in line with residential customers usage. Messaging, good point here, I think, to keep in mind is that a lot of people in the past have developed rate structures that were geared toward incentivizing conservation. I'm going to say that we can't really do that right now, but what we noticed was that the messaging from the districts, the messages that they put out and that the state put out were actually more impactful than the rate design. So we've seen more savings occurring because people saying, hey, we need to conserve, we need to conserve, we need to conserve, as opposed to developing tiered rates or even budget-based rates. Okay. Growth, of course, plays into, you've already brought up the shifting in the customer classes and the mix of that, right? As ag customers go ahead and say, hey, water is just too costly, we can't do this anymore, we're going to see them drop off, and presumably we're going to see residential and commercial then hopefully pick up that balance. What we assume in the interim is a little bit unknown and shaky. Okay. And then it's worth pointing out, I think you guys already know, but about 60 to 67% of your water usage is generated by only 21% of your customers. So they carry a big portion of your guys' cost. And of course, that's ag. And this is me being silly or funny. You know, it's a moving target. It's very, very, very hard to predict. Okay. Going back to similar to what you were bringing up, this is your historical water sales and acre feet by customer class. And you can see it does, it jumps all over the place. You have a really high year in 2022 and it dropped significantly in 2023. And we've seen that. We went ahead and also looked at your water purchases. So this is just accounting for water loss. And, you know, if you have breaks, if you have a fire, or if you need to replenish your storage, your water purchases are going to be more than what your sales were. Okay, so we need to account for that. So what you see is that we look back at, you know, all the way to 2011 and it's all over the place. The only thing I can say for sure is that overall you're seeing less in purchases. So you're purchasing less, again, for many reasons, partly because of the ag are no longer producing as much. And then also people are now conserving and changing the way that they use water. So the real question becomes, what are we going to project for those dash charts that you see, those dash lines for 2026 and beyond? In 2025, we've seen about just shy of a 30% increase. It was a big bounce back. It definitely helped keep you guys afloat. Currently, right now in the current financial plan that I'm going to show you, we're going to assume about 11,000 acre feet of sales, or about 11,900 in sale or purchases. Another big and the biggest driving factor would be your capital projects and your asset management. So Standard Pipeline has a useful life of between 50 and 75 years. Your guys' system is definitely aging. I would say you're greater than half your system at this point is past that point. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to break tomorrow. It just means, you guys have repaired it and replaced it over time, but now you guys need to do more replacements, and it's going to be very costly. So it's, I would say, the most critical component of our financial plan. And we need to make sure that we've dialed it in and that we're accounting for it and budgeting for it. I mean, you can't keep on deferring. Best management practice, financial plan should extend through at least the capital improvement plan. I believe what I have in my plan right now is the 5 years. And then the out years, I'm just assuming the 5-year average. Okay, so you'll see that when I show you the numbers. We definitely
I
want
don't
to,
think I understand
Yeah.
the intent of that bullet. I mean, I know it's
which one?
the first one under best management
Mhm.
practice. Financial plan should extend through the capital improvement plan. Normally, we do capital improvement plans for what, 5 years? Is that what we look at? Maybe 10 at the most?
We've got about 10 years, but we focus in on the
But
fund.
we have assets that have useful lives of 5 times that amount, 50 years,
You bet.
70 years. So I'm not sure.
So
what-
my financial,
saying.
my financial plan, I need to make sure that I'm not just looking at today. I need to be looking into the future.
Right.
So hopefully, if you guys have a robust capital plan and I know projects, like very specific projects, I want that to be my financial plan. Outside of that period, again, I'm not going to assume that we just stop spending. So I've used a 5-year average for that. If you guys have 10 years, I would happily take all 10 years of CIP projects. Okay, so we just want to make sure that we're not looking too narrow and that our financial plan, our model extends at least for the life of your,
But you're taking the 5 years and the average and escalating it. You said there's an escalation factor on it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I'm using the engineer's news record, so it's at roughly 4%.
Okay, thank you. That helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we just need to make sure that we take that capital plan and my financial plan factors it in, and that we generate rates that are sufficient to fund the capital that we need. Okay. What you're seeing here, these are our recommended reserve policies in terms of what we want to make sure that we're building into our financial plan. I'm not saying that the district needs to change their existing reserve policies. This is just for the water enterprise. Again, I think you guys typically think of everything as like the district as a whole.
Yeah.
So again, just try to narrow it down a little bit and think of just water. So we always want to have an operating. That's to cover your day-to-day stuff. If your billing system goes down, you can continue to operate. That needs to be between 60 and 90 days of O&M. So your operating and maintenance
Does
expenses.
that include the cost of purchased water?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
including
It
the,
isn't just our running the house.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Mhm.
thank you.
and then right now your guys' district policy is 90 days of operating, which is again, right in line with what we would expect. Water capital, we do want you to look forward looking. So what I mean by that is what's coming down the pipeline. We want to have at least 1 year, preferably 2 years of that on hand, ready to go. I believe the district's policy is 1 year of depreciation. I believe. I'm looking at you,
Yes.
Jake and Colin.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
You're right.
Our policy is what?
It's 1 year depreciation. So you look at your total assets you have,
Right.
and you're taking 1 year's worth of that, and that's the policy. The only said for financial planning, I'm taking what will presumably be a higher number. Like I'm looking at your 5-year. I see what's coming up in the 5-year, and I want to make sure that we have enough to get those projects rolling.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Okay.
Is the large amount we've had to invest in pump stations gonna skew that 5-year average a bit?
I would say that your 5-year average is going to be pretty high, but it depends on if if you've already done those projects, it's not included in that. So I'm looking forward looking. So what we have coming up for 2026 through 2030.
It's what's coming, not
What's coming.
what happened.
Average about 8 million a year. That's
Okay.
that's our 5-year average
Mhm.
currently. Yeah.
Very good.
And
And-
so there are two alternatives at looking at reserves for water capital. One is the one you have listed up there, 1 year and 2 years of the 5-year average. And the other is a percentage of our annual depreciation.
Correct.
And which would give you the bigger number?
I can guess because I just knowing how depreciation usually works, that would be lower, but Constantine is going to have to provide me with your guys' asset values and I can determine that. But typically speaking, for any agencies that I've worked with, your 5-year, as long as you have a good, robust capital plan, it's going to be the higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depreciation is historical and, things just depreciate as they go and it's a old value.
And we have about 400 million in capital assets that we would
Plus
be
or minus.
ultimately depreciating over a 70
And it
year?
varies depending on the asset, pump stations,
They-
maybe 30, pipelines, 75.
Right.
They all have kind of different values.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, thank you.
So, and I'll just say this, our policy has various targets, and when you look at the bottom line there, it's about the same.
It's about the same.
Yeah, it's about the same. So you can kind of skin it different ways, but
Okay, thank you.
And what we're doing is we're recommending like a bandwidth, and you'll see that in my next charts. We're saying, okay, this is the bare minimum. We would like you to be above this or meet it very quickly. And then ideally would be somewhere between here. Okay. That just, again, it's all a matter of timing. If you have a really big capital year, you might see your reserves dip. That's okay, as long as you quickly then, bounce back and recover. The rate stabilization has already been brought up, but this is really important for Rainbow. I'm glad that they have one and that they continue to keep it a priority. And rate stabilization, again, between 5% and 10% of rate revenues, it's so important. You're going to use this in the years that you have a really wet year and you'll see a shortage in revenue, but it's okay because you have reserves to cover it. That's the whole intent of that reserve. And again, more important for you guys than a lot of the other agencies that don't have ag usage. New water resource, there's no minimum or target. That's really always been policy driven. So if the board is trying to develop new supplies, then they can elect to put aside money for that. So the idea there, I think, is to make sure that you're always thinking about and trying to find other sources of supply instead of always relying 100% on purchased water. Liability self-insurance, the only thing we're doing there is just we're keeping that 100K, and that's just so that if anything happens, you can pay the deductible at any given point in time. Okay, so we're just setting aside, making sure it's always there. And what does that mean in terms of dollars? In fiscal year 2026, the minimum is around 18.6 million, and the ideal target would be between 33.5. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So what you see here is your current financial position, assuming no increases in rates. So at your rates that you have in effect right now today. Okay, the black line is representing the revenues and the red dashed line is representing your expenses. And again, you can see that it's going up because we're assuming increases in costs. What that does not include, again, is in the future increases in purchased water. Otherwise, that dashed trend line would skew even higher. Okay. The bars at the bottom represent your net cash flow. That means revenues less expenses. And you can see, again, if we do nothing, which is of course not what we're going to do, but if we did nothing, by the time you reach 2031, you'd be operating at a deficit. Okay. And it's very important to point out that this does not include capital funding. This is just your operating expenses. So let's bring in capital. This is the capital plan over the planning period. Again, we would only be developing rates for fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2030 for a 5-year period. That's all you can adopt rates for, is for 5 years. In the out years, as Jake already mentioned, it's about 7 point something, almost 8 million if you take the average, but we're escalating those each in out years by the construction cost index. So we're saying, hey, we can't hold the cost steady today because it's going to continue to go up. Okay.
Do we know? I don't remember it from our discussions of the capital improvement programs. Why is FY 28 double our, was there something going on there that I can't remember?
A little bit, and it was a little bit financial based. We had a couple of years, and I think that the first year is the year we're in. So this is kind of our second year of kind of lower, I would call it a lower capital expenditure. That whatever it is, 4.6, I think is where we're at. My eyes are really bad. That third year, we had some projects that, we had kind of deferred out. We actually have some debt that's going to be falling off the books, and that was the year we were actually intending to potentially do a debt financing. So you'll see a greater amount of costs in that year because of that. Basically, it's projects where we need to do. That's really the first year where we can actually do that.
Are these basically pipeline replacements?
They're mostly rehabilitation projects, pump stations. There's a couple pump station rehabs in there too, some old pump stations that need new electrical and things that we've been kind of band-aiding along.
8 million add-on is just like, that's a lot of money.
It is.
And so I'm just
It
curious.
is. And we did,
Brian.
it was kind of part of the plan as we kind of had this bucket of projects, some higher priority ones. What's the first year we can actually do something financially to kind of supercharge our CIP, and that third year is where it comes up 2 years from now.
Bond?
Potentially. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I assume that, the CIP plan basically rates, first lists all of our assets, and then it takes every asset and projects a replacement cost or cost of repair. And then you take it the current remaining useful life of that item, and over the stretch of what it would last if you put it in brand new, and the age and prospective useful life. And what happens, having done a lot of reserve studies in my time, is that isn't by design that we have a third year that's going through the roof. It's just where the assets are. If you're really doing a objective analysis, it's telling us, yeah, we put this stuff off now and we got to pay the piper. And then
Pretty
it
much.
will level out, because now all of a sudden you're not going to end up with this very large pipe replacement.
I appreciate that, Bill. And I just,
It stands out.
yeah, when we
Yeah.
went through our capital program work during the budgeting and we looked at a 5-year, I did not remember
It was there.
a spike like that.
Yeah.
And so,
Even
my bad.
when we did last year's, that's kind of when we did. It was in year 4 from last year, and so now we're moving towards it.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know that we need to go through the whole list, but there's a lot of projects that we're including that are really important to get caught up and done. So that would be one of my questions as I do a financial plan, is can we spend that 16.5 million in that year? And I think there's 2 or 3 big projects. I'd have to pull up the list that you could spend pretty quickly. I don't know if you want me to go back to it, but
No, it's
I think
okay.
you have.
There's a couple of big pump station rehabs, and there is some pipeline replacements that we've been wanting to do, and they're all expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming.
And assuming all this work is going to be outhouse, not in-house?
That is the assumption. Yeah,
Okay.
it would be contracted out. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so then after we fund the capital, where does that put us? So that's what you're seeing here is our ending reserve balances after funding the capital. So in 2026, what you're seeing there, again, that red line is the minimum that I was telling you about, the bandwidths. And the dashed black trend line is the target or ideal, where we kind of want to aim for. What you see is that we're currently just below the recommended minimum. And without proper adjustments, we won't be able to fund the capital that we have on the books. So of course, we're going to have to do rate adjustments as we move forward. I don't think that that's surprising, but again, if we're looking forward, we don't want you to go off any cliffs. So we need to make sure that we're able to fund the capital and your reserves. So in summary of your current financial plan, you guys did realize some disconnect savings. However, please keep in mind there is 2 million in additional debt that we're paying now each year, and that's going to be through 2035 unless they decide at some point to pay it off early. Again, the 30% demand increase in fiscal year 2025 definitely helped keep you guys afloat and help you to have at least the level that you are with your reserves. It is worth noting that you guys you've already brought it up, but you've implemented less than what was the full notice rate. So you guys have come in lower as a district or as a board made decisions to do that, to pass along some of those savings that you could to your customers. And but again, this next 5 years, we have some significant capital.
What is the 2 million we're paying every year?
That's the exit fee financing.
That's,
We
we
finance
borrowed the
that.
money, now we're paying it back,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
And it's paying back 2 million, okay,
So
thank you.
debt service, yeah.
Okay, yep.
So what I've done, just to give you guys a sense of the impacts of those demands, is I've come up with those first 3 scenarios, scenarios 1 through 3. I'm really just, the only thing I'm changing or trying to change is the acre feet of sales that we're assuming. So what happens if we come in even lower than what we're assuming? What if we come in at 10,000 acre feet? And then what I'm showing is that in order to, if you have 10,000 acre feet of sales, we're going to need to raise rates such that it generates an additional 3 million each year on average. Okay, so it's a pretty good increase.
That's like 6%.
Trying not to say percentages. I'm trying really hard.
Okay, I'll
Because-
stop 2 then.
No, I get it. It's easier to understand percentages, but people automatically assume that that percentage means a rate impact. And with the way that the cost of service is, people, it's not going to be across the
It's not
board.
gonna be the same,
Mhm.
right.
So I'm trying to find a different way of saying that, but yes, essentially. So my goal again is in fiscal year 2030 to be about the same level and let you guys know what that means. And then the final one is if we go ahead and issue another debt, that would be in fiscal year 28, I believe. And so we'll go through those real quick. So again, this is the first scenario. This is what it would look like with the revenue adjustments. It's going to generate about 3 million additional revenues each year. Again, the capital funding is all just pay-go. And this is what your reserves would look like after funding capital. Okay. You do see that, again, we do dip down in fiscal year 2028. That's okay. We're doing it because of that high CIP year. Okay.
How did we generate enough cash in the follow-on year to overcome that deficit? How do we do that?
What do you mean by that, Lynn?
Well, you can see that the bar chart, the bar for 2028 is well below the minimum reserve line.
Correct.
So it looks to me like we're 5 or 6 million below the minimum reserve. And in the very next year, we made up enough money we probably picked up 7 or 8 million.
Yeah, you see that the CIP in that next year is only 4.9. So it's you have a really, really high year followed by a lower than average year. So the rates that's how you're equalizing it.
So our
So-
CIP program is going to dwindle down after
Mhm.
the big year, right?
Mhm.
And then it'll reload again.
Mhm.
Looks like 4 million more. Okay, all right.
And again, I believe we only had, I don't even know if we had fiscal year 2030. I'll have to check. I think we had through fiscal year 2030 in CIP projects in our plan. And I have it in the very back of my presentation. So yes, so the additional rate revenues plus lower than expected CIP or typical CIP helps recover.
So that would not be a good year to have an emergency like we're having
No.
now under the highway. Is that
Which is why you may want to issue some debt and not put your reserves at that level.
That's, that's critically low. Yes. You're using everything that you have to make that happen.
Yeah.
And you could do higher adjustments earlier, which would help build up. That's always an option. And again, I'm happy to take any suggestions you guys have for the scenarios that we will then present to the board. But this is just giving you a sense of what does demand do? And then what does the debt do for your overall ending result? The second one is PAYGO. Now we're assuming the 11,000 acre feet. I believe this is what the board has already agreed would be a reasonable projection to use moving forward
For this next year.
this next year.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's another thing that I should bring up right now. I'm saying it's that way for the next year and each year thereafter. I'm not bouncing back and I'm not bringing it down. So that's also, again, it's throwing darts at a wall, but
What's standard practice among other water districts?
well, other water districts don't have your level of ag usage.
Right?
So typically what we would do is we would look back at the 4 or 5 year average and see where they're at. And then we might, depending on how scheduled and how detailed they are in their growth projections, we might incorporate a little bit of growth. Again, the most conservative approach is to remain at 0% growth, but that's an option too. Okay. So again, typically you could look back and get a pretty good sense of where we're at, or sometimes we like, okay, what was a more typical year? But recently there hasn't been a typical year. So it's definitely kind of thrown things up in the air. So again, this scenario with assuming 11,000 acre feet of sales, we would only need, well, not only, but we would want to generate about 2.8 million in additional rate revenue. Okay. And it's going to look very similar. You can see in the out years, we're doing pretty good. You still have that dip. It's hard to tell if it's quite as significant.
A little less.
It should be a little bit less because of the additional sales.
Mm-hmm.
Scenario 3, this is now assuming we have more sales than what we're anticipating. Okay. Again, it drops it just a little bit more by about 2.6 million as opposed to the 3 in the first scenario. And you're doing even a little bit better there. Now let's go ahead and look at, okay, what happens if we did issue a debt? So what you'll see is it can mitigate the level of rate increases that we need, right? It kind of smooths that out. What you see in the light purple is now we're debt funding those capital projects.
That's net of debt payment?
Yeah, this is basically saying that all of 2028 can be covered by the 22 million plus all of 2029 and just a little bit of.
But we have to pay that debt off, right?
We do, which is where we come in next. So
That's the way it works, I think, Patty.
So if you were to do it, if you were to do a debt issuance, you can say, okay, now, of course, we're not falling below that minimum because we've received those proceeds and they're now available for your capital funding. But look in the out years, now there's those debt payments and they're going to continue on for the next 15, 20 years, 30 years, depending on this, the terms that you guys select. So long term, you know, your rates are going to have to, you can mitigate it now, but you're going to have to keep on covering it in the future. So it's a balancing act. I guess another pro, if you want to think about it or consider it, is the argument for issuing debt is that it spreads those costs over a longer period of time. And presumably that's when those customers are receiving benefit from those assets. But again, it adds up. You guys do have some debts that are falling off during this planning period, but you have a number of debts. Okay, well, is there any questions on the proposed or any feedback? Is there any scenarios that we might, are you guys just good with me just showing 11,000 acre feet to the board, or do you think that they want to see an over and an under?
Well, that's what we kind of decided, right, Jake?
Yeah.
We did approve for this year's budget, the 11,000.
Mhm.
Yep,
For this year?
for this year.
No, not
But
for out
26.
years.
No, we weren't really looking out, you know, just for this year's budget.
He had his crystal ball and he looked in there and that's what we came up with.
Yeah.
I like it. I wish I had one.
Where do we get to address the concerns of our friends from agriculture? Is this the time to do that? Or do we do it later in your presentation?
We'll probably do it later in the
Okay.
presentation after we've talked about the legal requirements.
Okay.
I know it's a concern. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Mhm. But this is more so just, okay, this is just the first step for a cost of service study is we need to determine how much revenue we need to generate. So this is step one. So if you guys have, like I said, any input or direction here, I can take that into consideration and adjust my presentation to the board. Maybe, like I said, narrow it down. It sounds like to just 11,000 acre feet.
I think everybody was comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd like to suggest maybe just one other chart, and that
Yeah.
would be, okay, let's assume that we screw up on can't produce 11,000
Okay.
and maybe it's 10,000.
Mhm.
What impact does that have on what's going on?
Okay.
I like that.
Isn't that your first scenario then? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I didn't know if there was a need to do, all of them. I was just trying to show you guys the impact.
yeah,
But I don't
I don't
they
think
need
you
all
need to
that.
do all.
Okay.
Just do the lower one and what we think.
Sounds good.
Yep.
And then maybe a debt issuance and a pay-go funded option. Yeah. You look like you have a comment.
I do. When I served on the San Luis River Council, some 6 or 7 years ago, they had a weather forecaster who was talking before any I've ever heard the term used before about atmospheric rivers, and he forecast the year for the next 2 or 3 years. He said we're going to have this, and he said we're going to have that next year, and we're going to have that. Came right on the nose. Forecast the drought, then forecast the wet year based on the science of studying these atmospheric rivers and how they impact different regions. And now, I think a lot of people in the industry consider that hocus pocus, but others don't.
Yeah.
I just wondered if we're using any kind of input from somebody like that in trying to determine the amount of rainfall that's likely to occur in the coming year.
I mean, I keep an eye on it with the NOAA extended forecast and things like that. But beyond that,
And
No.
now Noah's half gone, so they are. They're much diminished.
yeah,
Uh,
it does seem like most of the forecasts now. I know there's more to it, but they kind of, this whole La Nina, El Nino pattern, and that kind of pushes into, well, it's greater than 50% chance it's going to be wet, or it's going to greater than 50% chance it's going to be dry, and it seems like that's where a lot of the forecasts come. It's tough. I mean, the year we had, well, the 10,000 acre feet, the really, really wet year, which was back to back, right? We had a wet year, and then we had a really wet year on top of that.
Mhm.
That was actually a La Nina year, and we had all those atmospheric rivers that just, for whatever reason, that jet stream came down.
Right
And
on it.
it's hard. And that's, I mean, what we were trying to do is take a look back at least 4 years. I think when I looked at it with the board, we actually even went back 7. It does get a little funky back then because you just had more ag, even 7 years ago. So tried to normalize some of that stuff as far as what do we see when we do have the wet year, maybe not the 2023 where there's 60 feet of snow in Mammoth, but a wet year. And I think that's kind of what we've corresponded to, like what we've seen over the last 4 or 5, where ag would land. Plus we've seen some residential, we know there's some, that kind of bakes itself in, right? It does kind of bake itself in. But like Andrea said, we still have 60% that's ag. Some of that's ag residential too.
Mhm.
Some of it's nurseries. Some of it's, so it's not just avocados too, which avocados are very volatile, but so there's kind of different things in there too to kind of factor in. But I think that's kind of that's how we landed on that. Really looking at how does the weather affect our demands, and where do we think it's not the floor, right? We know we can do 10,000 when we have an extreme year, but where do we hit most years that doesn't put a whole bunch of risk on us? I think that's where that's kind of where we got to as a board.
When we,
Having this year really helped too, because all we saw was this downward decline, but we're going, is it weather or not? And now we've seen, oh yeah, some of it was weather, where we still have some demands out there.
If we're looking at trends, does Andrea do a rate study for us every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years? How often are we going to be doing this?
Well, I mean, we did the 5 year. I think the reason we
We did that in 23, right?
23, normally we wouldn't be here doing this. We would, if we come in under that 9%,
Is
we
it because
don't
of
have.
detachment that we're reloading?
We wanted to kind of rebalance the model is really what we wanted to. And we'd heard, we got some feedback both from board and public and committees that there was a couple things that we wanted to look at. And so that's why we kind of wanted to hone in on this thing. It doesn't mean we need to redo a 218, doesn't mean we need to redo our rates. I think we're going to live well within what we have already approved. We could go out to 2028 and not have to go through that. And I think we're gonna get to that in a minute.
With that, let's talk about the dreaded legal rate setting environment. So a little bit about Proposition 218, especially for the new members. What does it state? This is what governs your rates. Okay, it says an agency cannot collect revenue beyond what is necessary to provide the service. So it can't be, you can't earn a profit. It can't be for profit. Okay. Revenues derived by the charge shall not be used for any other purpose other than that for which the charge was imposed. I would argue that this is where you need to maybe keep your revenues pretty segregated. So that means that water should stay with water and wastewater should stay with wastewater. That means that you can't use rate revenues to, I don't know, host a bake sale or something, right? You have to keep them using them for their purpose. The amount of the fee may not exceed the proportional cost of service for the parcel. This is the crux of where everything's changing right now. In the past, we've done allocations and methodologies that were proportionally or reasonably, or that we felt was justified. Now the courts are basically coming back and saying, you need to prove that cost to that parcel is more. So for example, if you have a residential customer and an ag customer, and they have different rates, you need to justify it in terms of dollars. You have to show it, which is very difficult. No charge may be imposed for a service unless that service is actually used or immediately available. So all this means is that if you don't have a water line that goes to that property, then they shouldn't be charged water rates, right? So if they don't have access to it, they cannot receive it, then you can't charge them for it. Okay. Pretty basic. And then obviously there's noticing requirements. So customers need to be noticed 45 days in advance of the public hearing. So that's the legal speak. There's two very recent court cases. Actually, when we were doing the study back in 2023, COZAR had already been in the process and was in the works. And it was COZAR versus Otay Water District. That case was a class action challenge to Otay's tiered water rates. And before you guys actually had tiered rates, and we moved to uniform, and it was largely because of this case. So it wasn't coming out good then. In the end, it didn't come out well. So what they said was that tiers were established to promote conservation or affordability. That was addressed earlier where, a lot of people would like to have a discount rate for low income people, but legally we can't do that. Okay, the only way that you can do a low income or affordable rate is if you use other non-rate revenues to subsidize or offset it. Okay, so it's an important point. And in this instance, the district supported conclusions that tiers were based on the concept that higher water users place greater demand on the system, and that residential customers use water in a similar manner, that they can all be basically grouped together. They relied heavily on industry standards and assumptions. Everybody honestly did back then. So, and I would say even to today, people are just relying on industry standards. So what I mean by that, we have the AWWA manual, and it gives us some guidelines. And everybody in the industry has used that as a guide saying, hey, it's industry standard, and we used it, and that was our justification that no longer flies. So what the court held They went ahead and they lost, and then it was appealed. And once it was appealed, it now became precedent for the state. So that means that everybody needs to abide by it. So the Court of Appeal essentially said that they had insufficient evidence to show that tiers were based on actual costs. So again, what that would mean was if you have tier one, the next drop of water that goes to tier two, you would have to show that the district or the agency incurs more cost at that point. There was a clear, distinct trigger point, and now that's why that rate is higher. And again, it's very hard to do. And no connection between higher water use and peak demands. Again, that's industry standard. A lot of times we use peaking. We won't get too much into that, but they said, no, you can't do that. They also went further, and this is a really difficult one, where they said there was no definitive reason to differentiate between the customer classes. So in the past, you would see, and Rainbow used to have it pretty distinctly, each customer class would pay a different water rate. And we did that because they use the system differently. They're saying no, unless you can show what cost, let's say an ag customer incurs that a residential doesn't, you can't differentiate between customer classes. Okay, so it's really changing the way that we're doing things, and it's really restrictive. You might find some consultants out there that are wanting to be on the edge and fight it a little bit, and maybe think really creatively, get involved with the engineers and see what they can come up with. But you literally have to have cost to justify any differences.
Does this mean that court is saying that we no longer can have a residential rate, a multifamily rate, an ag rate, a construction rate, all these different rate categories that no longer do that?
That's the way I'm interpreting what they're saying. They're saying here that it's not illegal. They're just saying, oh, more evidence is needed, and they're not telling us how we can do that. So they've said, okay, you can't use peaking the way that they used it, but they're not saying how we can use it.
Have we asked Alfred to look at this?
Yeah, good point.
Not yet. I mean, we've looked at different avenues, related to 218, but I think this is really, the results of this case, and then Andre's going to go over one more. That's what I was kind of saying is it's kind of changing the outlook on the creativity methods that we can, that you can use. Ours, I mean, all our costs are there. The way we structure it's a little bit different, between ag and residential, but all the costs are there. It's just we differentiate the fixed and the variable a little bit different, but yeah, so but there are some challenges, some things that we were looking at as potential, things where we could do some differentiation, become very challenging with this. And the next case she's gonna.
So the next one was very recently. I believe it just got the verdict either last week or the week before. It was late in the week. So again, I don't know what day, but it was very, very recently. It's a very, very long, it's like a 78-page dissent by one of the members. So the majority did rule again. This is Pat's versus the city of San Diego. Again, it's related to tiered rates. The city argued that higher volume users should pay more due to the increased infrastructure costs required to support peak demands, which is unnecessary for the lower use customers. Again, that's exactly what I would have done 2 years ago or a year ago, maybe even. So we did use peaking. We think it's justified. The courts are saying no. So they also said that in this instance, the court found that the city's rates were designed primarily to encourage conservation, and that is not a cost-based justification. So this is problematic, again, because the state is saying that agencies need to reduce their water usage, and they're going to fine agencies if they don't do so. But then on the other hand, on Prop 218, they're saying, but you can't develop rates that incentivize or address those conservation needs. So they're very much at odds, which is, I believe that hopefully in the near future, there'll be enough dissent or enough arguments or appeals that this, hopefully they're going to find a way around it, or they're going to revise the language. That would be my hope, but who knows if it's 1 year or 5 years down the road, but it's definitely like that they're at odds with each other. Then they had the city's peaking factors were based on historical consumption data. Again, of course, you're going to use historical data because that's what you can administer and look at, but they didn't like that. They said without employing time of use metering and very specific individual customer data that they didn't believe you can use peaking. So again, very, very restrictive. They said applying a tiered rate structure solely to residential customers may result in discriminatory treatment. And then the court also took issue to lack of data regarding source of water supply. Now, this one's, I think, the biggest one that impacts what we're going to do, what we were trying to do for you guys. Because in this instance, they said that the city of San Diego, they blend their water, right? They have multiple supplies and they put it together and they use it. They had developed their rate saying, hey, if everybody used the nominal amount of water, we'd only need to incur that lowest cost. And so tier 1 became the lowest cost. And again, that makes sense to me. The court said no, that you blended that water. They're receiving mixed water and you can't prove that they received the lower cost of water. So you can't charge it to tier 1. So
Down to the molecule. That's what I was saying, down
like
to the
I said,
molecule.
literally down the molecule. So I don't like that. I personally don't think it's reasonable, but that's where they're at in the courts right now. And again, this impacts you guys because what I was hoping to do for ag was I was going to say, okay, they don't need treated water. So they shouldn't pay for treated water and they shouldn't pay for any of those chemical costs, but they receive treated water. So according to this case, I have to charge them the cost of providing service to that parcel. They're being very exacting in what they're expecting right now. So it's,
And the first bullet,
yeah,
sorry,
no, you're fine.
where it said the city argued the higher volume users should pay more. To me, it's like shop at Costco. The more you buy, the more you save. I mean, that's really confusing because ag uses a lot of water.
They do use a lot of water. And essentially what the courts are coming back and saying, and it might be in line with the way you think, I'm not quite sure, but every person pays the same amount per water, basically a uniform rate. That's really, I feel like that's what they're arguing towards, is making sure that everybody just pays a uniform rate. And again, problem with that from a rate consultant perspective is that what they don't realize, or maybe they do, the moment you go to uniform rates and you don't have tiers anymore, residential prices are going to go up. Like you're going to increase any of those low income users that you had hoped to try and help. They're gonna see it very painfully. So it's difficult. So it's not a good time to be doing rates. So some key lessons, essentially, like I said, what I'm going to tell you, some of these things really do impact Rainbow if we're going to do a full cost of service study. That second bullet point there, reliance on industry standards. In the past, we've used the M1 manual for your meter capacity ratios. What that means is you have different rates by meter size so that the larger meters pay more cost. We're going to have to use agency specific data. And I believe what that's going to mean, Jake, is if I'm looking at it correctly, the larger meter size, because I did get some gallons per minute information from Josh, it's going to be higher than what we had, which unfortunately means that's going to push more cost to the higher meters, which of course are going to be your ag customers. So that's going to be problematic in a cost of service study.
Farmers.
It's rough. Again, we have to make sure that you guys are aware of any risks that we see. One potential option that we were looking at for ag was to use property taxes. We could offset some of their variable rates with property taxes. Of course, with that, I would defer to your legal counsel and make sure that they're okay with that and whether or not they see that as a risk.
Will they be requiring each water company to justify their rates based on these rules?
Yes, absolutely. The minute they appealed it, that's the problem, is once they appealed it and they lost again, it becomes precedent. So now it is a standard that we have to look towards. So over the last year, since 2023, we, up until this point, we've gone ahead, we've eliminated most of the customer classes to the extent that it wasn't viable. And we were using water supplies to differentiate between tiers. Now, I think it's going to be whether or not the agency feels like that's a high enough risk and that they'll be litigated because of it. That's really the only way right now that I can think of to differentiate. So it's definitely a difficult situation to be in. Any other questions?
I have been concerned for some time since our ag customers have showed up here trying to make a case that their rate for water should be lower.
Mm-hmm.
And my concern continually has been that we need a certain amount of money to run the house.
Correct.
And if the ag rate is lower, then somewhere we have to make up the difference in order to cover. And that's ultimately going to end up probably on residential, both single family and multifamily. And I've been curious as to, and I've not heard from our ag friends, how much of a reduction are they looking for in cost? There's both the fixed costs and there is the cost of the unit of water that they buy and how much we mark that up. I haven't heard anything specific from them. I don't know if Jake, you or Constantine have heard a specific number from them as to what they're looking for, but
Much as they can get,
what?
as much as they can get.
As much,
Because Jake, didn't they get a 5 to 6% decrease with the detachment?
Majority of our ag customers are about 5%. Yeah.
Cause I directly asked one of them, what do you expect? Isn't that better than nothing? And they want more.
they want more.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. I mean, I get it. They're trying to blame water for their economic difficulty, and I think water plays a part, but I think there are many other factors that affect ag that they're not investing in that could have helped them. And so I am concerned that what this has told us, the legal thing has told us, is that we really do not have much of a way at all of deflating ag water rates to the detriment of the residential user without running afoul of these court decision, which in a way to me is good news, but it's also troublesome, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, yeah, I agree. It's definitely tying our hands on options even, things that we were kind of kicking around that we thought had some 2 weeks ago that we thought, oh, hey, this could actually be something that wouldn't be so impactful to all of our customers, right? Because it's not untrue either when, you talk about if demands did continue to fall, the sales continue to fall. It is very impactful to all of our customers, right? We showed the 10,000 acre foot option. Ag makes up 60%. So if it drops by half, you drop by 30%, right? You're dropping 30% of your sales. So it's worth looking into. But it is, our options are pretty limited. It doesn't mean we're not going to, within our rate structure, we're not going to continue to look at some of those things where we can, move around some revenues and try to, I think the idea last time it was to kind of steady our revenues when we increase the fixed cost. But it also benefits the high water user, right? To have the lower variable cost, it does benefit the high water user. So, I think there was a push then to try to find balance, and I think that's what we'll keep doing that. It's just a question of these things that aren't, when you're looking at, well, it doesn't really matter what the molecule is. Let's make a reasonable connection between these things. Those things just aren't holding weight against the 218 litigation, and people keep losing is what happens.
And it's specifically in this area. So it's really been the San Diego
And
courts
Coachella just lost too.
Yep.
Same.
Did they?
Yeah.
It's been a rough go of it. And again, so that's kind of to my point. In the past, what we would do is we would typically come to you and we'd say, hey, what's working and what's not? We'd ask you about your rates. Then we'd say, what do you want to achieve? And that's exactly what Jake and, Constantine were trying to do. We're like, okay, we need to come up with some way of giving some relief to ag. Well, what the court case is, it's almost eliminating those two options. So we can only come up with cost-based rates. We don't have the flexibility that we used to have, at least right now today. Hopefully it's going to change, but I can't tell you when. So it very much restrictive. It puts some handcuffs on us that, again, we didn't have 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was looking at a way of, again, not charging them for chemicals or for treatment. And that was reasonable in my brain. But right now, I think it'd be very risky to do that.
But it occurs to me that, our ag friends, when they were testifying, we're talking about other districts that were doing this and doing that. And specifically, and what we found out is the ones that were experimenting to see if they could, make a differentiated rate stick, haven't been able to.
Yeah.
And that's something that we should share with them.
Yeah.
Because they were
You
pointing.
have a little bit. I think you have a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's tough. I wish there were other ways we could approach that, but
Yeah. And again, I think most of our ag customers, it's really the variable rate that is the biggest impact to them. It's, I think our rates right now, they're uniform and justified. And I think there's things, with, again, just kind of rebalancing our financial model and those kind of things. I think there are some tweaks we can make to help out. I think to help out all our customers, to be quite honest. We're
But
gonna.
if you help ag, then you're going to make it more expensive for residential. There's just no way of
Yeah.
getting around it.
Yeah. The scales just.
And residential is where we have our most income challenged community,
True.
right? So what we're doing is we are trying to help a class of customers who, in large measure, had other opportunities and capabilities to fix their economic problem. And instead, we're going to be asking couple classes of customers, single family, multifamily, who have no stake in all of that and who are least able to pick up and carry the freight for what's perceived to be the wealthier agricultural class,
Yeah. Well,
even though the
I would
ag
say,
class is not all
Yeah.
wealthier. I get that.
and we were looking at ways. Hey, how can we make it more affordable to add? I think even going into this from the beginning, knew this is going to be challenging to get
Yeah.
something that actually would stick. I think you kind of hear two different things too. I mean, some of our ag customers, they'll complain about the fixed costs too, but I think that variable rate really is the big driver. On the residential side, it's really more the fixed cost on the
Mhm.
residential side. So
Mhm.
I would say that too. I think as we dive into, because Andre is kind of putting all these numbers together now, these different scenarios and things like that. I think we're probably going to look at both of those things and see how can we help out where the most pain is, right? So I don't think we're looking for one customer class to really supplement another. I don't think that's I know
Well, that's what would happen
if you just lowered it, yes,
yeah,
you're
that's
right.
what would happen. Yeah.
I think we're just looking for, I think where we're at now is just looking for opportunities to make it better for all of our customers, find a way to help them all out, but you're right. The dollars are the dollars.
I'm a small residential customer, buying 5 units of water and paying $200 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
You paying how much?
$200 a month.
200?
Right.
Yeah, pretty close to 200 a month and on 5 or 6 units. It's a 3/4 inch meter. And it's a small house and I have almost no yard and everything else is association common area and their water and the rest.
You better
But
check your bill. I'm a 3/4 inch residential. I'm using 35 units of water a month and I'm paying 350.
I
And
think
you're using 5 and you're paying 200?
it's all fixed costs.
A big portion of it.
It's all fixed costs. And when you go down to the smaller homes that aren't using a lot of units and you look at the fixed costs, they're
Yeah.
all there. It doesn't matter how many units I use.
Yeah.
The bill doesn't vary. I could use 7.
You get a power charge probably.
Whatever. Yeah, so I mean, it's tough for everybody. I think the best thing that the district has ever done, of course, is to detach. I mean, I'd be looking at 230 or 240 right now,
Mhm.
you know, just with the changes that have been made
yeah.
in water rates at the water authority versus what we're dealing with. So
Yeah.
I really feel good that everything has been done that can be done. And now with these court cases, they're just shedding light on how we're going to have to do it
Yeah.
and how we have been doing it.
But I do think, I mean, we are going to see, you know, we see savings in different places with Eastern than we saw with the water authority, both on the fixed side and the variable side. And so I think that's probably our biggest, you know, we're going to rebalance no matter what. I think where Andrea is getting with this last slide is kind of the recommendation that probably doing a full cost of service study is not, we don't have to right now, and it's probably going to be more damaging than good. To be quite honest, I think.
That's essentially exactly it. I was just trying to let you guys know that the legal environment right now is really rough. There are still a few things out there that are a little bit on the unknown. You know, MWD is going to change their rate structure in 2027. That could be impactful or it may not. I'm not, like I said, not 100% sure, but I know it's coming. So you have that. As long as the electricity cost, the fiscal year 26 budget incorporates those new pumping
Yeah.
charges,
Which it-
then you should at least generate the level of revenue that you need. Because that's another thing that we were thinking about was that we're going to need additional pumping zones if you do an updated cost of service study. But essentially, again, you can always go up to the full noticed rates that was in that original notice. So we did the 5 years, so you can always go up to the full notice if you need to. Or alternatively, like I said, we do a full cost of service study, but just be aware that some other things are going to be changing, like the meter capacities. That's definitely going to need to change, and then we'll have to just be very restricted. And
I guess the bottom line is, I think where we're seeing is we're in a better place now than we would be if we actually redid our entire cost of service study. I think our rates are uniform and justifiable and within the legal framework, and you know, having to go back and kind of make these changes probably, again, it's going to be impactful to us, I think. Rather than just, I mean, we've already approved, the board approved, you know, 4% rate increase. That was that was just based on revenue, right? Revenue and expenses. And I think it's really just about balancing those. And I think there'll be some discretion there. Probably there might be an alternative or two on how we balance the fixed and variable cost and what we can do, but within the framework of our existing cost of service.
So any other feedback or questions that you guys have? No? Okay.
Simple
So we
stuff.
are,
Just
so we
simple.
are theoretically saying that our rates at present are an accurate reflection of the cost of service to the respective customer classes that they're assigned to? Is that what we're saying?
We are pending a little rebalance. You know, we're again with the Eastern costs in there now. We do have to kind of update the model and adjust the rates accordingly. But overall, yes, we're saying that.
And and it is going to be increasingly difficult to tell our ag friends that we can carve out a special subsidy for them because we are having our hands continue to be tied by court cases. Is that basically where we are?
Yeah, legally we can't subsidize them, so you can't do that. The best that we can do.
I use the term
Yeah, yeah.
subsidize
Yeah.
marginally. Okay, give
Sure.
them a break that nobody else gets. How about that?
What we did in the last study, I don't know if you recall, but we allocated to the customer classes, so they got their fair share, and then we took part of their variable and we shifted it to fixed. The court cases are being a little bit stricter on that, and they're asking, well, why would you recover a fixed cost on the variable? And we do that, and every agency does that, because if you recovered all of your fixed costs, 80 or 90% are going to be fixed. So, you know, and again, it goes back to where you're at right now, right? It would be even worse. You know, so there are definitely some fixed costs that would be, you know, sometimes salaries gets recovered on the variable side. It's a fixed cost. But that's one rebalancing that we could work with within the realm of cost. of
The
service.
idea of not charging ag customers for the chemicals and the treatment that we put in their water. How does that meet a true cost of service?
I think we just learned that it doesn't.
Requirement that,
doesn't
that,
anymore.
I mean, but we do treat that water. We do put the chemicals in and they buy it. And so why would they not have to pay?
Well, that's what I mean. When you're looking at the molecule, instead of just general justifications, it's
Yeah.
down to the molecule. So there, you're right. There is none.
That hound don't hunt no more.
It doesn't hunt.
It doesn't hunt. Okay, all right.
We've got a whole lot of nothing or very little to work with.
Yeah.
Mm.
Other than the
What-
savings we're seeing on water, that's what we continue to work with. And I think that's, you know, we're
Thank God you did.
we're
that.
way out of the 9% range. We're, you know, so stable is good. And like I said, we're still gonna do what we can, for all our customers to make it as low as possible. But continue with our CIP, and I think we're doing that too. We got pipeline replacements on, you know, coming up and those kind of things. So that's just kind of where we sit.
Getting
Pete, what
grants.
you gonna
too.
say?
Well, getting grants
What?
too
Oh, yeah.
for the,
Yeah,
you
let's get
know,
on with
replant.
grants.
and,
We need
help
money.
customers, I think has been a real, you know, positive step too.
Yep.
How many people did we end up with in that program?
80 some odd properties, and yeah.
That's a lot of customers getting a subsidy to convert to more water efficient.
Yeah.
Pete, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this has been a very impressive presentation.
Thank
And
you.
it's one of the most thorough I've ever seen here, and I've been here a long time.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm.
So this is going to the board next week? Same
Uh,
presentation?
It'll be similar. I think we'll probably cut down the scenarios a little bit. You know, just to show those impacts of the lower water sales. I
And
think
it'll be an
that's-
informational item and there won't be any request to make a decision on something?
Well, we'll be looking for feedback. I think We'll
Feedback?
be looking for similar feedback, yeah. But we'll be looking to move forward with updating the financial plan and then coming up with a basically a rate card, coming up with a rate card based on the 4%.
And there's no reasonable way in front of the district to find some help for the very income challenged customers that we have that are looking at a $200 water bill for no water, basically. And that's, I mean, there's nothing that can be done there.
Well, if we lower their fixed costs, we just got to raise the variable rate, which we could do. I mean, that's, you know, that's something you could do. You put more on the variable, less on the fixed.
And would that have to be done system wide or could that be done on a customer by customer basis?
Well, we are looking at a couple of options there, for,
It's just, we gotta do something, I think. And that to
Yeah.
me is a higher priority, frankly, than ag. I'm just sorry, but it is.
yeah.
But we discussed that.
Hmm?
That they can't make distinctions between lower income people and the regular ratepayer.
Right.
What
They're,
I've
they're,
seen in other agencies is if you have other non-operating revenues, be it property tax, which you have a small, not,
some,
you have some, your cell tower leases, you can take those revenues and you can set them aside and use them for, when people call in and, depending on the agency, some of them, there's like a care plan, right? If they qualify for that, then they can call in and get either like a one-time assistance with their bill and it comes out of that revenue. We just have to set it aside for that purpose.
yeah, non-rate revenue.
Non-rate revenue.
218 covers the rate
You
revenue.
know, what's
which
so
is most of
disturbing about this is that the electric utilities don't have these kinds of restrictions. They are able to offer substantial rate reductions for charitable organizations, for
Low
low income people. I mean, goes on and on. They can do it. The phone company can do it. All of the other pieces of our utility base have the ability to do something to help people at very, very low income levels. And yet for some reason, water, you know, it's like we're in a world of our own here. And I don't understand that. And it's just very troubling.
Yeah. And we are looking at that. That is something, actually, our customer service and our customer service team is kind of exploring the options of a low income program. The state's been trying to push something through for a while too. That would actually kind of like it was an opt-out program. Basically, if they were going to send out a notice and said, hey, we're going to raise everybody's bill by $5 or whatever it is if you don't opt out, and that money is then collected and offsets these people, the folks that get into the low income program. So they were trying to push that through a couple of years ago, or maybe just last year.
Constantine need a new financial management system. to Keep up. with
Well,
all that, right?
that's where a lot of the pushback came, because there was restrictions on like what you could charge for administering the program and things like that. And so the water districts were kind of going like, hey, this is actually going to cost us more than to administer than it is a benefit. So those things are in the works, but I think internally even we're looking to see if there is something we can do for our customers that are actually hurting, not Bill.
I did notice though that if I reduce my meter size to 5/8, that I'd save 50 or 60.
Go to
bucks
half
a month.
inch, go to half inch.
50 or 60 bucks a month and was the difference. And
Okay, we have another item on the agenda. Can we declare victory on this?
Thank you for
this
the
point?
feedback.
Should that
Yes.
okay?
Thank
Do
you.
you have what you need from us? What little there was? Okay, all right.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. So we will move on now to item number 11, state and federal grants update. And I see a couple of familiar faces here that are going to give us that update.
Yeah, I'll say on this one too, we've really kind of dug in. We just entered into a lobbying contract, state and federal lobbying services with the 4 agencies, the mutual services agreement, so Fallbrook and us and Valley Center and UEMA.
Right.
And all, for those services we're receiving, basically all with the 4 of us teaming together, we're getting about half the cost we would normally pay. And it's great because we all have kind of similar needs. What we're hearing is, and you're going to hear us a lot of good news, right? We've got some grants that we've got and in progress and things like that. But both on the state and the federal side, it looks like in the short term, there's just not going to be a lot available. The state's got budget woes. And so, there's some stuff that, through the propositions that were approved in that you might see some of those kind of things come through. But even at the federal level, everything's kind of frozen as far as the, new grants coming out. There was some optimism that maybe with the next budget cycle that could free up a little bit. But that's kind of what's happening. And we've seen, I know Esther probably talk about we're going after a grant for some generators, backup generators for some of our pump stations. And it was a Cal OES FEMA notice of funding opportunity. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's, whatever it was, there's $10 million available and $100 million worth of applications came in. So that's kind of what we're working under right now, where, previous years there was a lot more money available. And so, your chances were a lot better. But anyways, we're still going to chase those things. It just looks like, in the next 8 to 12 months, at least it's challenging environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Esther, management analyst for the district.
Need a little volume there.
There you go. Esther Land Management Analyst for the district. Good afternoon. Today I'll be presenting our grants update. I did go ahead and remove state and federal because I did include one grant. It's a funding opportunity by a private company, SDG&E. So this will be the district's overall grant update. These are the agencies that we're currently either in progress with of submitting funding opportunities, or we have active opportunities with them. I do want to point out one that I did not include a slide in because I don't want it to be conceived as a grant. It's actually a pass-through funding opportunity from Metropolitan Water District. We've participated in this program before. It's the multi-agency program where they give us $15,000 and we take in applications for turf replacement. We submitted an application. We haven't gotten a response yet. So once it's accepted, it's a different program that we're going to pursue this year. So we'd like just to give a specific presentation for that full program if it's approved. So I will leave that for another update. It'll be a collaboration with FPUD. But other than that, the other agencies are listed on here. And as you'll notice, SDG&E is the only private company on here. So this is overall our grant summary. In total, if we net our matches, we have about $1.5 million coming in from state, private, and federal. Our biggest grant match would be the grant opportunity that Jake mentioned. It is for the hazard mitigation of the installation of 6 generators emergency. That one, we received a notice of intent. It was accepted, and we have a meeting coming up to discuss the progress of that, and I'll go into that at a later slide. So all our current and its submitted applications or progress is on this screen currently. That does not mean that we're stopping our efforts of looking for more. We certainly are. As Jake mentioned, the grant opportunities are definitely getting lesser than previous years, but we have hope for the future. So our first one I want to cover is our second year of the WellSteps grant. It's from ALCOA JPI. This is really the purpose is to for our employee benefits. So we have $1,700 coming in. Last year was $2,000. This did get reduced to 85%. We got a response and it's because of the I want to say over participation. So they spread out. They usually, they have a lot of applicants, so they just kind of granted a lot of people and reduced our funding by 300, which is fine with us. We're grateful for this opportunity. So we did receive that this month and is currently being used to fund our employee health program initiatives. The next one is your Power Your Drive for Fleets. We kind of briefly went over this in the last E&O meeting with Robert, saying that this is a 18-month plan timeline. So the funding for this is, there's no dollar amount. It is really SDG&E installing, operating, and maintaining their infrastructure once it is installed on our Rainbow Municipal property. And we did go forward and propose that we wanted to do a scenario 3. They gave us 3 scenarios between operations, IT. We've decided that scenario 3 for the installation of 2 600 amp power centers best fits our needs. The next step is they will come on site and review the plan for us. If it is identified that we will need maybe additional easements because it does require the installation of a second transformer, then perhaps we'll go to another scenario, but this is the proposed one and the one that was sent to us by SDG&E. So we have an update once the next steps come back. Our next one is the defensible space. This is currently active. It is from CAL FIRE. This is really managed by our engineering team. It's for weed abatement. Currently ongoing, we're looking to expend the rest of this funding by this fiscal year, and we'll seek to apply again, hopefully once this opportunity gets reposted by CAL FIRE. This is very exciting because we got approved for this. Then the federal agent FEMA put a hold on it. We recently got reapproved. So now it is at Cal OES. This is really a one-person managed program. It's by Ahmed, our IT manager. He applied for it, received the funding. We have $180,000 with no match, meaning that it is completely free grant money for us to really fund the bolster our overall cybersecurity state for our district. And we're just waiting for the fund release. It is back at Cal OES. Our next one is the emergency backup generators. We're going to have 2 grant opportunities I'm going to talk about. This one is for lift stations. This is already approved. Actually, we moved forward and submit our application. We heard back as recent as this morning that they have our application at the EPA specialist. She has a few more questions for us, but guaranteed for us that we'll most likely receive funding for this after October 1st and before the end of this year. So we can proceed with the installation, purchasing full cycle of 5 fuel efficient generators for our lift stations. And this opportunity is not to be confused with our next one, which is called the Hazard Mitigation Assistance, but this is the one that we recently submitted notice of intent for. This does have a higher match. It's a 25% match, but it is for $3.75 million to fund 6 permanent emergency backup generators for our pump stations. So we have one approved for lift station. This is for our pump stations. We're hopeful that our project will be selected. As Jake mentioned, this is a very competitive grant cycle because a lot of the funding is going to be cataloged for the Palisades Fire community that was impacted.
Okay, question? Can you go back one slide?
For sure. This one?
So the backup generators in this slide and the backup generators in the next slide, are they for the same pump stations? What's the
No,
deal?
those are for sewer lift stations. So sewer lift stations are getting upgraded as part of the 1.6
Sorry,
million.
I got it now.
Yep.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The other one's on the water side.
Okay, next up for us is we have a scheduling call with Cal OES to determine, they're just going to give us more information about our competitiveness for this grant and what we might hear back. And our last one is kind of, this slide has a little bit less information because it's an ongoing thing. It was submitted in April 2025. It's kind of for multi-incentives, addition of 1 heli hydrant at Gomez, addition of standby generator and pipeline upgrades. It was submitted and the status is that it's on the plate for Congressman Issa for consideration of future funding. And that concludes the grant presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. That is all.
Any question? Pete, Bill, ladies?
Thank you.
No?
No, thank you, Esther.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so we're on to item 12, review of the monthly finance report. Constantine, you gonna walk
Yep.
us through that real quick?
Yes, and
Okay.
mostly we already talked about it and cover on a high level. So I'll just cover some points here. And this is unaudited numbers. We're still looking because June is a year end, and final numbers will be published in ACFR book after audit is completed. But sales are final, so we'll see. We had 12,905 acre feet as of June 30th. And budgeted was 10,000, so it was really good year. All departments came, almost all departments came under budget and did a good job in trying to be under, and was some good cost savings implemented. So I didn't see anything that out of ordinary by department. So it was really great teamwork from try to be on a savings side and try to boost our reserves. That was the goal in the fiscal year 25. We ended with 17.3 million in our reserves, which are unrestricted reserves, and total with restricted is 22.2 million. During June, reserves stayed flat. We didn't increase, and that has to do with some debt payments that we had to do, and they were due on July 1st, which is the beginning of the new fiscal year. So we paid some of our loans.
Are we paying Oceanside now?
We are done
We're
doing Oceanside.
we're done.
No, I know, we've caught up. I know, I think you told us that last time.
Oh, okay.
We're caught up. this is
I like to announce it every time I can.
semi-serious. And have we made our current payments so that we are not gonna?
We
fall
have them
behind?
on top of our list, and we're calling them, make sure that they're submitting the invoice on time. Yes,
Okay.
so
Make
we
sure
are
you bill.
watching them.
All right.
Because of that, that brings me to another point. So if you look at, so we doing really great on the water side on Fund 1, and our Fund 2, operating wastewater, we came in a negative for the year, and that has to do with Oceanside payment that we had to do 17 payments worth of 3 years of overall treatment. So that is why the 13% increase in rates on July 1st on the wastewater side was really needed, and we will recover that going forward.
The actual operating wastewater operating, if you take that out of the equation, it actually was a good year on the wastewater
The late
side.
fee, or
Operating is
the
fine.
regular fee.
The payback,
Right.
the back payments. If you take those out, it was actually a really good year on the wastewater side. So I think we're in we're on the right track. We just had to get back.
Just
on
the late
track.
payment
Yeah.
that really brought the balance down of
Yeah.
the overall, but
Man, I think if you don't invoice, they don't send you an invoice, then they don't deserve payment, but that's just different. You
Yeah.
gotta ask, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do have to keep sending them our wastewater though.
Yeah.
And we're not paying them interest. So,
Okay.
yeah, no interest.
All right.
And that's all. That's all for me.
That's it?
Yes. Any questions if you have?
Any questions? Okay, that gets us to item number 13, suggested agenda items for the next meeting. Now, my understanding is that Julie had wanted an update on emergency generator for pump stations. And didn't we just hear about that here with the grant application?
We did. And
Huh?
we could bring the 2 slides back and
We can-
let you know where it is.
Okay,
I
so-
could do it during my comments
Okay,
or whatever.
okay.
Yeah.
So emergency generators, and what was her other, does anybody remember? I could look it up on my phone.
Yeah.
What was her other request, Therese? Emergency generators and some,
You wanted the general grant update like we just had.
and we just did a grants update, right? Okay, I'm gonna check just to be sure. I don't want Julie to think that we're,
I did let her know that we were going to do that today and I could send her information.
oh man, I'll never get that in my email. I filed it, I'll never find it. Okay, so basically, except for emergency generators, we really don't have anything for next time coming from the committee and Business Forward. Are we going to you're gonna go to the board with the rate study update. Is there going to be anything for the committee to consider at its September meeting based on what the board does and work that she is doing? Is there anything else that we need to plan on?
Well, I think we'll be bringing the rate card back at some point. I don't know if it'll be next month, but probably within 2.
Probably at the October meeting,
I
because,
would, August,
Didn't
September,
you want-
October. I think so. Yeah.
Should we
because,
cancel?
fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
yeah, okay, all right, so.
Cancel September?
All right, so then all I have for next time is emergency generators and the regular financial update, right?
Right.
Oh, what about the audit?
Audit will not be done at that time.
Okay.
It will be in October, I think.
Okay,
It will be actually very busy in September with the final field work on the audit. I kind of propose we maybe cancel.
Maybe we think about just going to October meeting.
I'm kind
Sound like we
of
have a lot.
thinking maybe
Yeah.
we just follow the lead of the sloughs over at engineering and operation and just not meet,
Take a month off.
go on strike, right? Huh? You okay with that? Does anybody here have a problem with potentially not meeting
In September.
in September?
No.
Ooh, more golf. Okay,
Yeah. You know, buddy.
All right.
So we'll plan on.
Okay.
in October, having a busy meeting in
And-
October.
and we
Yeah.
Could have a,
yep,
We
sounds busy.
we'll have
And-
more information too on how you're progressing on the new pipe under
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
under 76.
For sure.
So item 14 is adjournment, and it will not be till Tuesday, September 9th. It'll be to Tuesday, October the something, right? Whatever that is. 14?
Thinking maybe the 14th.
Okay, October 14. And everybody, bring your visors and your glasses. Looks like we're gonna have a busy time. So motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, no. Okay,